In introduction to the lessons on object orientation, we spoke about the concept of inheritance. And we also mentioned that inheritance is one of the most powerful aspects of object-oriented programming. Inheritance is where one class inherits the methods and variables of another class. So essentially, it inherits all the members of a class. Now let's see this in action. Let's say in our zombie game, we wanted to create a new zombie, a new type of zombie that's a flying zombie. Now, a flying zombie is identical to an ordinary zombie with one exception, and that is it has the ability to fly. Now, what do we do in that case? Do we restart creating the flying zombie? Because a flying zombie will also have a strength. It will also have methods of walk and talk. So do we create this from the ground up, or do we simply inherit from the ordinary zombie? Now you well understand that we don't have to create all this, but just exactly how do we inherit from the zombie class so that flying zombie inherits all of its characteristics. Let's start by creating a new class, and we're going to call this public class flying zombie. Now how do we make flying zombie inherit everything from the zombie class? Simple. We use the keyword extends. What this means is now flying zombie becomes a subtype of zombie, and in doing that it inherits all the variables and methods of the zombie class. Now let's test this out. As you can see, the flying zombie class is empty, it doesn't have anything. Alright, but let's save this. Now in our zombie game, we're going to create an instance of flying zombie. Alright, and we're going to call Z4's talk method. Now clearly Z4 doesn't have a talk method, but let's see what happens when we call its talk method. There we go. So this last line here is the output of Z4's talk method. Now where did Z4 get a talk method from? It actually got it from its parent class, which is zombie. So the zombie class does have a talk method, and flying zombie in turn does not have one, but it inherited the talk method from its parent class. Now flying zombie is free to create its own method. So let's create a method of its own here. This method will simply do an output. Alright, so now if we call flying zombies method fly, it will output zombie flying. Let's try that out. Alright, zombie flying. But remember, inheritance doesn't work both ways. What this means is the parent class, any objects that are instantiated from the parent class won't have the fly method. So Z1, 2 and Z3 will not have the fly method. If we try to call the fly method against them, then it will give Java will give us an error, for the simple reason that the child class inherits everything from the parent class but not the other way around. Now in this way, when you are creating classes and objects, you can use inheritance so that you can reduce the amount of code that you are writing. Now even though flying zombie is a type of zombie, it itself can be a subclass. So in other words, we can have flying zombie which extends zombie, and then we can have another type of zombie that extends flying zombie. Let's say if we wanted to create a new zombie that has added functionality over and above the normal zombie, the normal flying zombie. Now another thing that a subclass can do, a child class can do, is that it can override the methods of the parent class. So for example, if we go back to zombie class, all right, and we saw that zombie class has a method walk, and this method does certain functionality. In this case, it's very simple functionality. All it does is it says it outputs zombie walking. Now if we wanted to add to the functionality of this method, so we wanted the flying zombie to inherit everything, but just this one method we required to change. Now Java gives us the power of doing that by overriding the methods. So let's try that now. Alright, so this is how we do it. We override a method by simply duplicating the method signature. So if you look at the walk method of the zombie class and the walk method of the flying zombie class, they are identical. But let's make our change inside the system out. So this one will be different because it will output zombie walking very, very fast, whereas the original zombie class simply stated zombie walking. Now let's see how this all works out. Let's go back to zombie game, compile it. Before we do that, let's call the methods now. z1.walk, and we'll change z4's method fly to walk. We'll call its walk method rather than its fly method. Let's see what happens when we call z1.walk and z4.walk. Let's try that again. Alright, so when we call z1.walk, it simply outputs zombie walking, and when we call z4.walk, it said zombie walking very, very fast. Now the reason for the difference is that z1 is an instance of the zombie class, whereas z4 is an instance of the flying zombie class, and flying zombie is a child class of zombie. It has added functionality to it. So this basically sums up the basics of inheritance. There's a lot more to inheritance, but if you want to specialize in Java, you can delve deeper into the concept of inheritance. And we also touched on the topic of overriding methods.